So thank you very much, everyone, and good afternoon. We're going to start. I'm going to start with the numbers in Ontario. Again, encouraging, but not as low as yesterday's. Today's numbers were 2,093 increase from the previous day. We've been seeing a decline now over the last couple of weeks, which is a good decline. Literally less than half from what we were about 2 weeks ago when we had peaked at over 4,000. So that bodes well for the numbers going downwards. As far as the Eastern Ontario Health Unit is concerned, we do have, let me see where we are now. Sorry, it's going to go here. Thought I had it here, but sorry about that. Can you see my screen now, the EO2 website screen, Jenna?
Yes, we can.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so we're now at 416 active cases. We added, I'll show you here what the change is. We added 8 cases, which is actually probably among the lowest that we've added in a little while, which is good news. 2 in Cornwall, 2 in SDNG, and 4 in Prescott Russell. We have, at this point, 24 hospitalized and 5 ICU, but I think the number, I just got a new number, we haven't refreshed it yet, is a bit lower. I have 20 and 4 in my new numbers. We don't have any increase in deaths in our area. And we continue to see a decrease in our rolling average going downwards. You can see here, starting from around, I would say the first week, first week of January, 10th or so, going down, where you can see we're now treading down towards the red. We were clearly above the red in the gray zone at that point in time, and you could see that for Cornwall as well, our average EOHU and SDNG and Prescott Russell are approaching that. So that is encouraging to us. We continue to have outbreaks that, again, most of which are in retirement home, in long-term care and retirement homes, and some are, again, most are staff, but we do have some significant numbers of residents in certain ones, and I'll go over that a bit later. So I'm just going to stop sharing now. And so, as you know, we've also had decreased numbers in testing positivity. We're down to about 3% right now. Our R naught is down to 0.85. And so those are numbers that are quite encouraging to me. We do have a good downward trend. We're seeing the downward trend across the province as well. And one of the things that you would know is that the issue is that essentially we today it was announced that the schools would open in our area as of February 1st in our area in Ottawa. And I can explain a bit sort of some of the thinking of where we were. I think I shared with you that the rate of positivity of students, particularly kids between 4 and 13 years of age, was very high, and it peaked right after Christmas. And to me, the reflection of kids getting together unsupervised and so on, and the number actually in the 11 to 13-year-old age range were actually quadrupled in terms of positivity. And I just asked my staff to do a quick summary of children between 3 and 12, and between December 22nd and December 22nd, 2020, and January 27th, 2021, we actually had 105 kids in our area, most of which were they were spread out between literally 3. There were a couple of 3, but then 4, and then predominantly we've had 14 kids, 14 9-year-olds, 13 10-year-olds, so 16 11-year-olds, and 14 12-year-olds. So you can see we have those numbers that are up. And that's one of the reasons the school entry was delayed. And those numbers are starting to go down, as reflected by our our statistics now going downwards. In terms of our long-term care facilities, again, we have we're following them. We have at this point in the Akwesasne one, there's basically 21 residents that were positive, 15 staff. Among the residents, we had 4 that are active. They've had 6 deaths there, and they've had 15 positive staff, 5 of which are active. The other homes of note really are Lancaster, where we've had 42 out of the 47 residents positive. We've had 11 deaths and 24. Actually, there's just 1 active case now in residence. We've had 24 staff, 3 are active, and we're continuing to provide online support over there. The Glen Store Dunlodge has nothing new, has 7 residents, 6 of which resolved. There was 1 death. And there are 9 positive staff, 3 of which are still active. Maxwell Manor has 2, has not changed from previous report. Riverview Manor continues to be a preoccupation with 17 residents, 6 of which are now active, and 3 active out of 6 positive total staff there as well. The good news now is that we have been able to complete all of our long-term care residents in terms of vaccinations. We have received a very little amount this week, which was Moderna. We had received 200 doses of Moderna, which I think I explained on the other day, where the individual we did the Lancaster home, and then now we're starting today. We started to work on our high-risk retirement homes until we run out of vaccine. We are slated to receive vaccine next week, and again, we're going to be prioritizing in the sequence. First dose to residents of the long-term care and high-risk retirement homes. We will plan to give a second dose to the residents of long-term care home and the high-risk retirement homes within the 27-day, 21 to 7-day period, maximum 27 days. We're not going to go longer. And for the rest, we're going to go between 35 and 41 days. And that's based on Pfizer studies that we know there will be, the efficacy remains up until that time. Well, again, as we get more vaccine, we're going to be rolling it out even more, and we're going to again want to ensure that we follow up with our phased-in approach. Right now, we're struggling with the numbers. It's a sort of a bottleneck at this point, but I can tell you that at some point our problem is going to be a lot of vaccine and trying to convince people to be vaccinated and hesitancy and so on. So in any case, we do believe that things will get better. I've got a couple of questions that people ask, so I might as well address them right now. I had talked about schools and school returning, and like I said, today it was announced that schools in our area and in Ottawa will go back. As you know, in the rest of Eastern Ontario, Leeds, Grenville, and Renfrew, they were back last week. There's going to be some additional measures in terms of masking, screening processes, testing on site, and so on. Those are the things that we're working with our school boards. We will be sending in our nurses to all our schools. We have the dedicated nurses, again, to do a revisit and ensure that they're working with the schools to ensure if there's any questions or any issues, just to remind people of the precautions because they've been off for a while now. So we will be doing that starting next week. I know that people have asked me about spring break and March break. And one of the things that I had said really is the fact that I was worried about kids being not in school, not in class or anything like that, because what I just repeated before was that we had a tremendous increase in the positivity rate and the high rates of children getting infected, really right after coinciding with the holidays, the holiday period. And so, one of my concerns is obviously, first of all, we're actually, we shouldn't be traveling. Obviously, we will be staying home. My concern is if parents should be very, very aware that they need to be very careful with intermingling the kids, play dates, and those type of things, because that's what happened there moving forward. That's what happened in December, and we saw the numbers go up. And as I've explained to you, the positivity has gone up, and a number of kids have gone up as well. And so I think that one of the possibilities, obviously, there are many factors coming into play. Is do you not have do you cancel spring break because you don't want kids to be home unsupervised? It's better to be supervised in school. Of course, there's other factors. There's fatigue of teachers. There's a few other things as well that you need to take into account. But we're just saying that I don't think it's going to be March break as usual. I would request that during March break that parents be very, very aware that what happened in Christmas, and let's learn from that. So to me, that's a very important message out there. I'm not making any decisions. It's not up to me to make decisions about March break. But again, one of the questions about March break is the fact that we want to ensure that if March break occur, when kids are off, that parents realize that or do their best not to intermix with other kids, because we saw that increase that contributed to the increased numbers that we had. So I just wanted to clarify that because again, if you ask me, are they more supervised in a school setting? Yes, they are. They're wearing masks and so on, which may not be the case at home. But but as long as parents, assure that all the precautions are taking place, I think it's very important. The other factor that is important here is the fact that we are now talking about variants. There's three variants of concern in terms of the virus mutations, and although we haven't had any in our area. Ottawa has had it, Durham has had it, Simcoe Muskoka has had it, Toronto has had variants, and so those variants they're much easier transferred from one to another. So, for example, if with the original COVID-19 virus, you might get away with maybe being a bit closer for a couple of minutes with somebody, or taking off your mask for a couple of minutes and then putting back on, those type of things. But with the new virus, because it's more infectious, has the capacity to cling on to you more easily. Let's put it that way. I fear that it won't be as forgiving. So it really will need to really buckle down on those, and that's why I'm worried about school break and making sure that people understand that now with the variant, we need to be very careful, even more careful with that 6-foot distancing, and with the issue of masking and so on. Again, because again, any small lapse that may not promote their normal virus, the original virus from spreading as easily. It may not be as forgiving if you're spreading that variant. That variant, because it's changed, it's mutated in a way that it's covering, its protein will actually stick on to people more easily. Let's put it that way. So even and you need to get a certain amount of virus sent to you in order for the anterior system. So even if you have less amount of virus coming to you, that virus, if it's stickier, it'll stick in, and you have a higher chance of getting infected. So that's my fear. That's why I'm worried about, and that's why I'm worried about getting the message out. If kids go off on spring break, that they need to do that. The other option, like I said, was to cancel spring break. I know that it's not a popular choice either, but I'm looking at it from the infectious disease point of view, and I do recognize people are tired, need a break as well. So we need to balance the two, and certainly just keep in mind that spring break or not, we need to ensure that those distances and those masking policies are preserved, even because now we're facing that bigger threat of that more easily transmissible mutated virus, which we don't have in our area at this point, but it's inevitable that it's going to show up sometime in our area. So thank you very much, and I will take questions right after this. Donc, bonjour tout le monde. Je vais commencer avec les données récentes au niveau d'Ontario. Je peux vous dire que les chiffres commencent à diminuer. Aujourd'hui, on était rendu à 2093 cas, augmentation depuis le jour précédent. Hier, on était à 1100 quelque chose, donc c'est la première fois qu'on a eu un chiffre si bas. mais on reste dans le niveau de 2000, à peu près en bas de 2000 à la moyenne. Ceci qui est la moitié qu'on avait il y a quelques semaines, qui était jusqu'à 4000, 4200, je pense. Donc, on le voit dans un bon trajet au niveau d'Ontario et au niveau, je veux juste aller ici, au niveau statistique, j'aimerais partager mon écran actuellement. Je vais le mettre en français. Donc, si on voit ici, nous avons ajouté 8 cas aujourd'hui. Ça, c'est le plus bas, je pense, qu'on a fait depuis quelques semaines. Ça, c'est des bonnes nouvelles aussi. On est rendu à 2441 cas. Nous avons toujours des patients hospitalisés. Je pense que là, je viens d'avoir un nouveau chiffre. On est rendu à 20 hospitalisés avec 4 aux soins intensifs. Aucun changement au niveau des décès. On a 18 occlusions. La plupart sont dans les maisons de longue durée et la plupart parmi les occlusions que nous avons actuellement sont en effet plutôt les employés et pas des résidents, mais on a quelques-unes qui ont des résidents aussi. J'aimerais vous montrer les moyennes mobiles que nous avons ici, les moyennes de 7 jours, qui est une indication de niveau de transmission de COVID dans notre région. Voilà, vous voyez que clairement, on voit un trajet vers le roux, vers plus bas, ce que c'est un bon trajet à mon avis. Donc, j'espère que ça va continuer. Vous voyez, on était beaucoup plus haut que la rouge. On était comme à 150 quand la moyenne. Rouge, c'est 40. Donc, vous voyez, on était très élevé à peu près la première semaine de janvier. Ceci qui est une réflexion de ce qui est passé pendant les fêtes ici. Et puis on voit nettement une diminution. Quand même, on est plus haut que la moyenne de la rouge, mais quand même, on va dans le bon trajet. L'autre chose que j'aimerais aussi partager, c'est que parmi ces positifs, nous avons, euh, beaucoup des enfants qui étaient positifs. En effet, dans à peu près un mois, entre le 22 décembre et le 27 janvier, on a eu 105 enfants entre 3 et 14 ans. La plupart étaient 11 à 14 ans. Le taux de positivité chez les enfants pendant les fêtes et vraiment jusqu'à fin décembre était 4 fois plus que la moyenne ontarienne au moment. C'était à peu près 5 à la moyenne ontarienne, était à 22 pour les enfants de 11 à 13 ans. Donc, ceci signifie qu'il y avait beaucoup d'enfants qui étaient ensemble, qui n'ont pas pris les précautions. Donc, comme ça, on a eu les chiffres augmentés qui a contribué aux chiffres on voyait dans les dernières semaines de décembre et début janvier. En effet, la raison pour laquelle on voit maintenant les écoles qui vont ouvrir le lundi prochain dans notre région et dans Ottawa, c'est parce que vous voyez nos chiffres commencent à diminuer, non seulement au niveau des chiffres qu'on voit par 7 jours, mais aussi le taux de positivité et le chiffre de reproduction est diminué. Ça fait 3 semaines de fil qu'on voit ça. Donc, c'est pour ça que le ministère a décidé d'ouvrir les écoles dès lundi prochain. Je vais juste continuer un petit peu, puis je vais retomber au niveau des écoles tantôt. Au niveau des maisons de longue durée, on a la plupart des maisons et institutions n'ont pas des cas chez les résidents, c'est plutôt les employés, mais nous avons toujours celle-là d'Akwesasne. Attends, je vais trouver ici. On a toujours la maison de longue durée à Akwesasne qui a des patients positifs, 4 qui restent positifs. Initialement, on a eu 21 qui étaient positifs avec 6 décès, tragiquement. On a 4 actifs au niveau des employés et 10 sont résolus. On avait 15 à ce moment-là. On continue à le supporter. En effet, au niveau de la maison de Lancaster, 42 sur 47 cas dans les résidents étaient positifs. Actuellement, on a juste un cas actif. Malheureusement, on a eu 17, on a eu 11 mortalités à cause de cette flambée et nous avons eu 24 employés qui étaient positifs, donc 3 sont actifs et 21 sont résolus. Donc, on continue à supporter le foyer. L'autre groupe aux maisons qui nous donne qu'on a des problèmes aussi, c'est Riverview Manor à Cornwall avec plusieurs résidents qui sont positifs. Je pense que c'était 17. Et à ce moment-là, on continue avec le support qu'on donne. Il faut dire aussi que la plupart des autres flambées, on n'a aucun résident positif, soit un ou deux maximum. C'est plutôt le dépistage qu'on fait au niveau des employés. Je vais parler un petit peu des vaccins, puis je vais retourner un petit peu pour parler des écoles tantôt. Euh, Avec les vaccins, ça va bien. À cause de changements de le protocole et la pénurie de vaccins et manque de livraison du vaccin de Pfizer cette semaine, on était obligé de changer un peu la façon qu'on vaccinait. On avait commencé il y a 2 semaines de vacciner les maisons de longue durée dans notre région, bien à Prescott Russell et à SDNG en même temps. Et à ce moment-là, on avait commencé de vacciner non seulement les résidents, mais les employés, les visiteurs essentiels. Mais la semaine prochaine, après avoir fait 6 ou 7, je pense, nous avons changé à cause qu'on ne prévoyait pas de recevoir de vaccins cette semaine. Donc, nous avons continué le mandat a changé de continuer avec la vaccination seulement des résidents, des restants de maisons de longue durée. Je peux vous dire qu'on a reçu un petit peu de vaccins de Moderna cette semaine et on a été capable, dès aujourd'hui ou hier, d'avoir fini de vacciner toutes nos maisons de longue durée, incluant Lancaster. En effet, nous avons commencé à vacciner les maisons de retraite des aînés, en effet, qui sont en haut risque. Nous allons continuer à vacciner les résidents et on prévoit, à un moment donné, on va avoir une augmentation de livraison de vaccins dès la semaine prochaine ou le 8 février. À ce moment-là, on va organiser de continuer à donner les premières doses aux résidents dans les maisons de groupe, dans les maisons de retraite. Mais nous avons calculé déjà la date dans laquelle on va retourner aux maisons de longue durée pour donner le deuxième dose proche à 27 jours, mais pas plus que ça, du Pfizer aux résidents, aux employés et aux visiteurs. On va retourner pour le faire à peu près dans les 35 jours après la première dose. Parce que c'est comme ça va nous donner la chance de vacciner tous les personnes âgées dans les centres, dans les retraites, dans les maisons de retraite et en effet dans la longue durée. Donc, c'est pour ça qu'on va commencer. Mais en effet, nous allons continuer au fur et à mesure quand on va recevoir de vaccins. Je pense que maintenant, ça se vient tranquillement, pas assez vite pour moi, mais on comprend que ce n'est pas juste nous, c'est à travers le Canada. Mais on prévoit dans quelques semaines de recevoir beaucoup plus. Puis là, on va commencer à augmenter et faire une expansion des personnes qu'on va vacciner. Donc, on va vous tenir au courant de ça. Je vais finir aussi pour le moment, juste pour dire un peu au niveau des écoles, la raison pour laquelle nous n'avons pas ouvrir les écoles avant ce lundi qui s'en vient, c'est parce que, vous voyez, on a eu un taux d'augmentation dans nos communautés qui était très élevé et on voyait aussi que le taux des enfants qui étaient qui étaient positifs était très élevé aussi. En effet, 4 fois plus que la moyenne ontarienne dans les dernières 2 semaines de décembre. Donc, maintenant qu'on voit les chiffres en diminuant, je pense que c'est le bon temps de retourner à l'école. Il y a beaucoup de bienfaits pour ça. Par contre, je me suis fait demander, on va avoir le break, le spring break en mois de mars, et on se demande qu'est-ce qu'on va faire avec ce moment-là, parce que qu'est-ce qui est arrivé pendant les fêtes? Les enfants restaient à la maison, ils jouaient avec les autres enfants. Évidemment, on a eu beaucoup des cas. Comme je l'ai dit tantôt, on a eu 105 cas juste dans les enfants dans à peu près un mois, fin décembre jusqu'à fin janvier. Moi, je suis, ça m'inquiète un petit peu au niveau de vraiment être prudent que si on a parce qu'il y avait une question d'annuler le spring break, d'annuler les vacances en mois de mars. Moi, j'avais dit que, écoutez, je comprends la raison pour l'arrêter, c'est parce qu'on veut pas, on va pas avoir des enfants qui vont jouer avec les autres pour avoir une autre troisième vague, si vous voulez, avec ça. De notre côté, on ne devrait pas voyager. Donc, on a un choix soit d'annuler les deux. Je comprends que de l'annuler, tout le monde est fatigué, les professeurs sont fatigués, donc c'est pas ma décision, je donne mes idées, mais disons qu'on on continue avec le Spring Break pour une semaine de la relâche là, au printemps. J'espère que, et puis le message va être aux parents de s'il vous plaît, aidez-nous de ne pas répéter ce qui est arrivé en mois de décembre, parce que les enfants devraient prendre soin, devraient rester chez eux. S'ils vont se mêler, et je veux pas, on ne veut pas que ça revienne le même taux d'infection qu'on voyait en mois de décembre. Donc, à ce moment-là, si les parents pourront le faire, ce sera une bonne chose. Mais à point de vue de santé publique et de taux d'infection de prévention, il faut qu'on soit au courant qu'on risque, avec le congé, d'avoir un taux élevé chez les enfants et ça va propager dans la famille. Donc, si on prend bien soin, on peut faire la prévention. Et la raison pour laquelle je suis inquiète pour ça, c'est parce que là, on a le virus qui a changé, les variantes de virus, et qui a changé de façon que c'est plus facile à transmettre d'une à l'autre personne. Nous n'avons pas dans nos régions encore les souches de variance. Par contre, on a trouvé à Ottawa, Durham, Simcoe et Toronto. Donc, je pense que c'est juste le temps. À un moment donné, on va l'avoir ici. Et puis là, ça serait très important de ne pas lâcher au niveau des précautions parce que avec le virus que nous avons actuellement avec COVID, disons que vous allez approcher quelqu'un moins que 6 pieds pour quelques minutes. Des fois, on peut s'en passer. Le virus ne va pas nous infecter parce qu'il n'y a pas de chance de nous infecter. Mais avec le variant, le virus se transmet beaucoup plus facilement, colle sur nos corps, si vous voulez, plus facilement et rentre dans nos systèmes plus facilement. C'est ça la mutation qui est arrivée. Donc, ça prend vraiment d'être très strict avec les précautions de distance physique et avec le port des masques. Et c'est pour ça que je suis un peu plus inquiété de ne pas avoir la promotion ou la transmission de ce variant parce que ça peut se propager beaucoup plus facilement que le virus original. Donc, c'est pour ça que je suis inquiété. Et si pendant le sommet de relâche, à ce moment-là, si ce n'est pas annulé, puis ce n'est pas ma décision, mais moi, je parle d'un point de vue de santé publique, il faut qu'on fasse très attention, que tout le monde devrait faire attention parce que ce variant pourrait beaucoup plus facilement être transmis, même avec juste un petit peu comme perte de distance, si vous voulez, un peu plus proche mais avec l'autre virus, on aurait le virus aurait moins de chances à se propager, mais ce nouveau virus a une capacité de se propager plus facilement dans le contexte d'être plus proche. Donc, c'est pour ça que c'est très important de vraiment respecter les normes. So I'm just going to go to the questions here and then I'll open it up. I have a question about March break. I've answered that. I've got two about March break. I've answered those as well. Again, I got News Talk 1010. Is your advice that March break be canceled for students? My advice is that there are you look at it both ways. my worry about spring break is that I don't want the same thing to happen that happened in Christmas, when we have those elevated rates across Ontario. The positivity rate went from 5% to 22% in 11 to 13-year-olds, and in our area, we have a marked increase of children getting infected, which tells us that precautions were not taken. So obviously, people are tired, and spring break would be great. Of course, we don't want people to travel during spring break. But again, if there's going to be a spring break, I would highly recommend to parents to make sure that the kids don't intermix with others, stay home, and adhere to the precautions, distancing and masking, because evidently that wasn't done during the holidays, and that contributed to the increased caseloads that we experienced over the holidays, unfortunately. Another question. Is there an outbreak in Woodland Villa? Let me just look at it. Yes, there is. I just want to see where we are right now. With Woodland, I forgot to say that. I have it here. Yes, actually, Woodland, there's an outbreak. There's actually 15 residents and 6 staff that are positive at this point. We're working with them as usual with the usual precautions. What is your advice to families, long-term care residents? Outbreak protocols aren't being followed. The question is about long-term care retirement facilities and residents concerned about outbreak protocols aren't being followed. When we work with the outbreaks, we have a team that goes in for IPAC. We go in with the aid of our hospitals, with the LIN going in, and we try as much as possible to ensure that the protocols are followed for outbreak. Related to the desire for the EOH to publish how many cases at congregated care facilities. We just published the number of cases, and I release the numbers when I present them. Will there be any change in the support provided by the EOH to local schools? Yes. As a matter of fact, we've already been speaking with the school boards. We will be aiding them in, of course, adhering to the masking. As you know, grade 1 to 3 will be wearing masks. In addition, we're going to be working on them for the enhanced screening process. There will be some on-site testing as well that we will be doing, or facilitating testing. And as well, our nurses will go into all of our schools to do another round of tour and just answering questions and refreshing, protocols and so on. So that's it for now for me. For the questions, Jenna, please open it up.
Thank you, Dr. Paul. Merci. Our first question comes from Philip Blanchard, Morrisburg Leader. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Dr. Paul.
Hi, Philip.
My first question, can you give some more detail into the rationale behind the decision to reopen schools in the UHU? Like, what was it, the metrics, the trajectory of how things are? Just some more detail on that, because I've already had questions from parents asking me that. So
yeah. Well, basically what I showed you, Philip, was a decrease in our numbers, really going down towards the 40 mark. So the 3 indicators that we saw, actually 4 indicators: stabilization of our hospitalizations, they didn't go up for the most part. Stabilization of our outbreaks, we had a couple here, a couple there, but there weren't significant outbreaks for the most part. The R naught going down from 1.5 to 0.98 to 0.85, which is the reproductive number. The percent positivity, that was when it peaked, it was 7.4. It went down to 6.5, 5.4, and now is in the 3% range in our area. And as you saw, the rates have gone down significantly and consistently for the last couple of weeks. And so we had a discussion with the Chief Medical Officer of Health this week about it. They were looking at the numbers, and we were looking at the rate of transmission in our area. And because the numbers are going down, and they're certainly not where they were a couple of weeks ago, we feel that the level of community transmission, that as it gets closer to the 40, will allow us to open the schools. Because if you do it earlier with higher levels, it's not that the schools are not safe. I keep saying it. It's that the higher the levels outside, the more easy it gets into the schools. Once it gets into the schools, we can isolate it, but we have to sometimes send kids home, disrupt it, and so on. So I think the time was right that we are now right in the downturn of the cases. There will be more precautions put into the schools. The masking now, grade 1 to 3, more strict screening guidelines. And we will also be working with the schools to do testing, rapid testing. We're putting protocols in place. So I do believe that at this point, the time was right because it balanced the need to return to school. A lot of parents were happy about that decision, and at the same time, and obviously kids going needing that, and at the same time was at a level that we believe, and other health units opened up at those levels as well, and did not have any issues.
Yeah, there was a collective cheer from my household as well. So, to follow up on that, you mentioned the asymptomatic testing. Do you have any more details on how that will work?
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to like permission or consent for parents, because that was a question I had received.
Okay.
And what would happen if a parent objected to a test being given?
Okay. Well, two things. First of all, I'm not going to. I think the term asymptomatic is not right. That's the ministry calls it that. At the local level, we're going to do targeted symptomatic initially. And what we're going to do, let's say a child develops symptoms, we will want to use rapid testing now to be able to rapidly test the child and ascertain whether or not the child has to stay home or not, and it'll make it rapid. Now, if we want to go in and do asymptomatic screening for the purpose of an outbreak or something like that, obviously, we're going to get parental consent and we're going to get parental buy-in. We might even have to test the family. So we're going to take it one by one. But when I talk about our initial thing, it's going to be, well, child symptomatic. We'll work with the parents to test the child. We're now working on protocols with a PanBio, where you could do a test. If it's negative, what you do is you wait another 24 hours and the test again. If it's negative, then the child's cleared. We have other on-site. We're also, as a matter of fact, I had a meeting this morning with the ministry to talk about those type of mobile testing that it'll facilitate getting tests quicker and therefore sending kids back to school quicker or decrease the need to isolation and so on. And as you know, we had big periods of waiting when kids were going back to school with getting testing into the lab. So this will facilitate it. So at this point, we're not going to be doing like broad asymptomatic testing. If I would do asymptomatic testing, would be if, for example, going to a school where we think there's an outbreak. And then obviously we would work with the parents. We would not do it without parental permission.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next question, Bill Kingston, Cornwall Newswatch. Please go ahead.
Yes. Hi, Dr. Paul.
Hi, Bill.
To expand on Phil's question about the asymptomatic targeted symptomatic testing, will those, you talked about doing the PCR testing or rapid testing with that. Do you have enough nursing staff to be able to do that, or is this something that school board officials will be able to facilitate on their own?
That's something that we're working with. There are two types of tests. Okay, the PanBio, which is the antigen. One-offs are not accurate. You need to do a couple in a row to be accurate. So, and those you don't need a physician, a nurse, or anything to do that because it's nasal swab now. So it's an easier thing to do. So we can work with the school boards, and it'll vary. As a matter of fact, I had a call this morning with the ministry. It's not a one size fits all. Depending who we do have EMT that can go and do it. We can go if we need to test a whole bunch of kids. We can bring the PanBio. We also have the ID Now, which is the PCR one, which is much more accurate. We have 4 of those machines. So we can do, let's say, go in to do a school. So when I say asymptomatic, let's say, for example, we think there's a big outbreak in a school and we want to test all the kids in the class, that most of them are asymptomatic, but we're doing it for a reason. We're not just randomly doing it, right? So the idea here is that if you have a child that you want to test, you will facilitate it. And there'll be multiple ways. We might fast track them through assessment centers, depending on where they live, depending on the circumstance. So we're creating a whole menu of approaches of how we're going to do it. Because my goal is to be able to isolate those kids quickly, test them quickly, and address them quickly. If they need to go back, they go home. They go back. If they need to stay, if it's positive, they're positive. So we're just working on it now. to do that, and we'll be working with the school boards closely. Like I said, I was on a call this morning with the ministry to do that. So it depends.
Okay, and my follow-up is two quick questions. Did you ever find the vector for the Lancaster long-term care outbreak?
No, no, we did not.
So there's you don't
We're
know.
not sure. I'm not sure. All I know is that I don't know who started, how it started first. I think it was positive staff first, and then it usually starts that way. But I can't. Don't quote me on that. I can check, but I don't think that. I'm not sure how it rolled out. All I know is I have the numbers now. I can check for you.
Okay, perfect. And just you mentioned that with the 200 Moderna vaccines that you received, that you did Lancaster long term. I assume that's everybody except the one resident active and 3 staff that are active. Correct?
Yeah. Well, we didn't do the staff. Our directive now is just do the residents. Okay. So we did the residents that were resolved. Let's put it this way.
And the 5 negative.
Pardon me?
And the 5 negative people.
Yeah. Of course.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Prochaine question vient de Annie-Rose Deschâtelet-Ledroit. C'est à vous?
Bonjour, Dr. Paul, vous m'entendez bien?
Oui, je m'entends bien.
Parfait, merci. Donc, la ville d'Ottawa, les comtés unis de Prescott-Russell, les comtés de Stormont, Dudley, Glengarry ont tous ou vont envoyer des lettres au gouvernement là, pour dire qu'il est temps d'ouvrir les petits commerces et de permettre aux magasins de grande surface de seulement vendre l'essentiel. Je sais que vous êtes de cet avis-là aussi, que vous avez souvent discuté de ça avec la province. Oui. Est-ce que vous êtes tanné que le gouvernement s'entête à ne pas prendre de décision par rapport à ça?
Oui, je suis frustré, si vous voulez, parce que ça fait plusieurs fois qu'on le demande. Je pense que j'ai parlé avec beaucoup des comtés unis, des conseils municipaux. Je pense que j'en ai parlé à 10 jusqu'à date. Et je dis toujours que je pense que c'est le temps de surtout avoir un plateau égal, là, level playing field, qu'on dit en anglais, parce que je pense que surtout dans les régions rurales, les personnes sont beaucoup plus affectées, les commerces sont beaucoup plus affectés, et il y a des gens, on sait que les magasins de détail sont ouverts juste pour livraison à l'extérieur, mais il y en a des gens qui n'ont pas la carte de crédit, qui n'ont pas d'ordinateur. Ils devraient rentrer dans le magasin pour acheter des choses. Ils n'ont pas l'envie à voyager 1 heure pour aller au Walmart ou les grands magasins. Donc, je pense que c'est le temps de dire qu'on pourrait les ouvrir, même si on est en shutdown, afin des choses essentielles, mais ils pourront rentrer, mais comme quelques-unes à la fois, avec toutes les précautions en prise. Donc, je suis un peu frustré. C'est une autre chose qu'on va parler encore. En effet, aujourd'hui, nos conseils de santé a fait une autre motion de donner un soutien aux lettres qui étaient déjà envoyées au gouvernement.
Donc, vous avez fait ça aujourd'hui, passer la motion pour soutenir les lettres?
Oui.
Parfait. Merci beaucoup.
Pas de problème.
Next question comes from Nelson Zandbergen, Nation Valley News. Please go ahead.
Hi, Doctor.
Hi.
I was wondering about when can I get a haircut? Because I've heard from a hairdresser, they're suffering big time. Now they wonder how it is that schools can open, kids can pile into a classroom with the teacher, and they can't have a single client in a single chair, and they're wearing masks and everything else.
That's a good point. It has to do with the government deciding what's essential and what's not. The government has decided that school is essential, unfortunately. But I do think that we have a light at the end of the tunnel. So I'm hoping that very shortly, next week will be the 3rd week, and they're going to have to start looking at numbers and start giving dates of stuff to reopen. So I'm optimistic that there'll be some good news for most of these people that have closed down.
Can you remind me what the reopening date is tentatively at this point and the end of the stay-at-home order? I know there's these 2 overlapping pieces of legislation.
My understanding is February 10th.
February 10th for the end of the gray zone lock down across the province?
Yeah, that's what I understand. Again, pending numbers, but I have no reason to believe if we continue with this downward trajectory that won't happen.
And I'm sorry, I had a supply teacher also ask me, they're very concerned about, potentially going back to school on Monday. They're older, but they have no idea which schools are maybe more high risk compared to others, and they do have a pick of which schools they can go to. Should there be like a risk index for schools? This school had X number of kids who tested positive over the holidays, and they would really like something like that because they're concerned and they're vital to the running of these schools.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that the positives that happened were school-age kids. We didn't notice what schools they came from. They were just young kids. They weren't in school when we did the positives. So we don't have an indication right now of schools. We do report which schools have outbreaks, which schools have cases, and they can go on that. We report that.
You didn't cross-reference with schools, and so that resource doesn't really exist for them.
No. But moving forward, we do. But there is a repository of how many cases per school, how many outbreaks, and so on, school by school.
Thank you, Doctor.
Now, I just want to say that I do believe that the schools are safe if we take the precautions, the necessary precautions. I mean,
Right.
I think that the reason that we didn't send kids back to schools because we know that when there's a high level of transmission in the area, that inevitably it'll get into the schools, just like it's got into our long-term care homes. What we're going to see is if with long-term care homes, we're start to get a decrease in the numbers as a reflection of the decrease that we're seeing in the community.
Thank you.
Prochaine question, Denis Babin, Radio-Canada. C'est à vous.
Bonjour, Dr. Paul.
Bonjour, Denis.
Simplement revenir là, à la réponse que vous avez donnée à mon collègue Philippe Blanchet, me la donner en français, s'il vous plaît, là, concernant les explications en vous appuyant sur vos chiffres qui permettent justement le retour en classe des jeunes.
OK, merci, Denis. En effet, il y a plusieurs indicateurs qu'on examine, on voit, pour décider si on pourrait rentrer à l'école. En effet, ce n'est pas une question d'être sécure à l'école, c'est une question que si on a un taux de transmission communautaire, évidemment, ça va rentrer dans l'école. Et on pourrait, malgré qu'on pourrait le contrôler dans l'école, mais ça va causer toutes sortes de fermetures des classes, etc. Donc, c'est pour ça qu'on attend jusqu'à un niveau acceptable. Donc, je vais vous expliquer. Dans les dernières 3 semaines, nous avons vu une diminution des indicateurs qui nous aident à déterminer le taux d'infection ou de transmission dans notre région. Donc, premièrement, les taux au niveau de 7 jours par 100 000 personnes, on les voit nettement ont diminué et ça fait à peu près 10 jours qu'on voit ce trajet dans la bonne direction. Bien sûr, c'est un peu plus élevé que la rouge, mais il y a 2 semaines, on était à 150 avec le rouge à 40. Là, on approche le 40. Vous voyez une grande différence. Ça, c'est une chose. Deuxièmement, le taux de positivité dans notre région était 7,5 il y a quelques semaines. La semaine passée, il était à 5 Cette semaine, c'est à 3 Donc, encore une indication de moins de propagation, de transmission dans notre région. Et finalement, un autre chiffre qu'on voit, on appelle ça le taux de reproduction. Normalement, on veut que ça soit en bas de 1. Nous, on était à 1,5. Là, on est rendu, la semaine passée, c'était à 0,98. Cette semaine, c'est 0,85. Encore, en bas de 1, on a un taux bas ou un taux qu'on peut contrôler, si vous voulez, qui est pas qu'on peut contrôler au niveau de la transmission. Donc, avec tous ces indices et aussi le taux d'hospitalisation est stabilisé et on n'augmente pas beaucoup des flambées. À un moment donné, on augmentait des flambées quelques jours, 2-3 par jour. Là, on a stabilisé. Donc, tous ces signes nous démontrent qu'il y a moins de transmission dans notre communauté. Et à ce moment-là, nous avons parlé avec le médecin-chef hygiéniste, Dr. Williams, en discutant, et nous avons vu les chiffres et nous avons décidé, on était d'accord d'ouvrir les écoles.
Merci, Dr. Paul.
Pas de problème.
Nelson Zandberger, Nation Valley News asks, 6 doses per bottle or 5 was achieved here?
Okay. We were able to squeeze 6 out of most of them. Not out of all of them. It depends on who pulls it out, what kind of syringe you use. So I want to clarify. This is for Pfizer. Pfizer has 5 doses in a vial, and we can squeeze out 6 depending on how we do it and using a 1 cc syringe. With Moderna, it's 10, and we could squeeze an 11th as well.
Thank you. Do those joining by phone have questions? Press star 6 to unmute. Ceux qui se joignent par téléphone ont-ils des questions? Appuyez les touches étoile 6 pour désactiver le mode silencieux. Seems as though those are all the questions for today, Dr. Paul.
Thank you very much, Anna. Merci tout le monde.